Welcome to The Debate. Usually when we think about reading a book, the relationship is entirely one-directional. You hold the physical pages, you scan the text, you extract whatever meaning you can, and when you're done, you just, close the cover.
Right, you leave absolutely no trace on the story itself.
Exactly. But imagine for a moment opening a book that actively reads you back. As you read, it tracks exactly how long your eyes linger on a specific sentence.
Which is inherently a little unsettling.
Oh, definitely. And it correlates the ambient lighting in your room with the subtle spike in your heart rate at a particular plot twist. And then, based on this instantaneous calculation of your unvoiced fears and desires, it silently rewrites Chapter 4 before you even turn the page.
Just because it mathematically knows you won't finish the book otherwise.
Precisely. And that tension is exactly what we're dissecting today. We are looking at the intense friction between the extreme, almost magical convenience of modern artificial intelligence and the preservation of our human digital autonomy. The core question is this: does AI's profound observational intelligence genuinely enhance our lives through intuitive personalization? Or does it fundamentally erode our free will by quietly shaping and commercializing our true desires? I take the position that AI's deep understanding of our habits is a powerful, beneficial tool, one we can consciously navigate.
And I argue that the so-called convenience AI offers is actually a Trojan horse for algorithmic manipulation, because it compromises authentic human choice, rendering our desires entirely predictable, and then sells that predictability to the highest bidder.
Okay, before we get into the whole existential dread of losing our free will, we really need to establish what's actually happening at the mechanical level. From my perspective, we are looking at systems that provide unprecedented, hyper-personalized utility by tracking what is known as choice architecture.
Right, it's not just seeing a click.
No, not at all. We aren't just talking about an algorithm seeing that you clicked on a pair of running shoes. It's about assigning a mathematical weight to the 1.4 seconds you hovered over the buy button. It compares that precise hesitation to millions of other users who also hovered for 1.4 seconds.
And then it calculates the exact moment to strike?
Well, I wouldn't say strike. It realizes that if it offers you a 10% discount exactly 3 hours later, your likelihood of converting jumps to 92%. The technology acts as an incredibly highly calibrated mirror. My stance is that as long as we practice conscious choice-making, we remain the absolute authors of our own stories.
I mean, I have to push back right there. The problem with the mirror analogy is that a mirror only reflects what is already there. It doesn't, calculate probabilities to alter your future behavior. I argue that AI doesn't just read us, it interprets us with this superhuman, relentless precision.
But interpretation is necessary for curation.
Sure, but it analyzes the rhythm and pressure of your typing on a smartphone screen. It detects the critical contradictions between what you claim to care about publicly on a social feed and what you actually search for at 2 in the morning when you think no one is looking.
Which provides incredibly accurate data.
Yeah, but it leads directly into the convenience paradox. When an architecture knows what we want better than we know ourselves, it gains the asymmetrical power to shape those wants. In a system that never forgets a single hesitation, true digital autonomy becomes almost mathematically impossible.
Okay, let's unpack the how of this, because if we're going to debate whether this strips our autonomy, we have to understand the mechanism. We have to distinguish between traditional surveillance and what this observational intelligence actually is.
It's not a guy in a van with headphones.
Right. It is not someone watching you through a camera lens. The AI is building a living decision profile based entirely on micro-interactions. Let's look at how this plays out on a streaming platform, for example. The algorithm doesn't just know that you abandon historical documentaries. It knows exactly why you abandon them.
Right, because it's correlating data points that a human couldn't possibly process simultaneously.
Exactly. It knows you abandon those complex documentaries specifically when your local weather is overcast and say the biometric data from your smartwatch shows elevated stress levels from a long workday.
So it's basically taking your pulse to decide what TV show you watch?
Yes. It correlates your biological exhaustion with your digital consumption. It realizes you simply do not have the cognitive load for a dense historical deep dive on a rainy Tuesday, so it dynamically reorganizes your homepage to feature a light, familiar reality television show instead. It is observing the absolute granular mechanics of your decision-making process and removing the friction. You don't have to search for what will soothe you.
Yeah, but the depth of that observation is exactly where it crosses the line from providing a helpful service to executing a manipulative interpretation. I mean, human beings analyze context, sure. If you look sad in a conversation, I might naturally adjust my tone to be gentler. That's empathy.
Exactly. The AI is doing a scaled version of that.
No, but the AI is monitoring the vocabulary shifts in your emails to detect early signs of clinical depression, not to give you a hug, but to feed that inferred emotional state into a permanent commercial model. It is reading between the lines of your digital life to categorize your vulnerabilities.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. Isn't this deep interpretation just a modern, massively scaled-up version of a highly attentive local shopkeeper?
Oh, come on. A shopkeeper?
Hear me out. Think about a proprietor of a small, independent bookstore who has known you for a decade. They know exactly what you want before you even ask. That shopkeeper notices if you linger in the mystery section, but usually end up buying a biography.
Okay.
They notice if you seem rushed or if you have an hour to browse. When you walk in and they say, "Hey, I kept this new release behind the counter for you because I knew you'd love it," we view that as incredible, deeply human service. It's observational, yes, but it's ultimately rooted in providing a frictionless, tailored experience for a valued customer.
I come at it from a completely different way. I mean, comparing a massive server farm to a friendly neighborhood bookseller is a bit of a stretch, don't you think? The shopkeeper analogy breaks down on several critical fronts, primarily memory, motive, and scale.
How so? The goal is the same.
Your local shopkeeper goes home at 6 p.m. They sleep. They have a life. They completely forget the exact number of seconds you hesitated holding a specific paperback back in 2018. The AI never forgets, ever. It reads you across time and across completely disparate platforms, connecting dots between your grocery purchases, your GPS routing, and your reading habits that you don't even know exist.
But the ultimate goal of both the shopkeeper and the AI is still to match you with a product you genuinely desire.
No, the goal of the shopkeeper is to make a living while maintaining a community relationship. The goal of the AI is to maximize extraction. Furthermore, a shopkeeper isn't going to detect that you are experiencing a moment of profound emotional vulnerability at 2 a.m., calculate that your impulse control is at its absolute lowest, and specifically serve you content designed to exploit that vulnerability just to keep you in the store.
That's a worst-case scenario framing, though.
But it happens every day. When algorithms detect vulnerability and serve highly polarizing or emotionally triggering content accordingly, they cross a very distinct line from observation to exploitation.
But we can't ignore the flip side of that exact same capability. Doesn't the system use that exact same detection mechanism to offer massive, tangible benefits?
Like what?
Well, if the system notices a pattern of late-night doom scrolling, a sudden withdrawal from regular social interaction online, and the shift in vocabulary toward depressive tones, it has the capacity to intervene. It can offer mental health resources or prompt a check-in. The observation itself is just math. It's neutral. It's a capability that can be harnessed for profound good just as easily as it can be used for engagement metrics.
The capability might be neutral in an abstract academic vacuum, sure, but these systems are not built in a vacuum. They are deployed within a ruthless commercial framework. Because the AI builds this permanent living model of our fears, desires, and blind spots, it shifts from merely understanding us to actively anticipating our needs. And that right there brings us to the hidden cost of anticipation.
Which is what, exactly?
We're dealing with massive neural networks that calculate probabilities based on millions of people who possess psychological profiles identical to yours. That means the AI isn't just offering what you want right now based on your past, it is predicting what you will want next week.
So it's forecasting your trajectory. That's efficiency.
It's algorithmic determinism. It calculates that users with your exact profile who experience a specific trigger today will likely desire a specific product or adopt a specific viewpoint in 5 days.
By placing that content in front of you early, it gently pushes your desires in directions that benefit the platform's engagement metrics. It literally strips away your authentic voice by quietly manufacturing the desire for you, making you think it was your idea all along.
Wait, but is it actually manipulation if the suggested outcome genuinely solves a problem the user hasn't consciously voiced yet?
If it's done for profit without consent, yes.
But think about the user experience. If you're listening to this right now, you might be thinking, I don't care if Spotify knows my music taste or if my calendar app tracks my habits. It literally makes my commute and my workday better. Let's look at productivity tools that utilize this exact same intelligence.
Productivity apps are a very niche example.
But a valid one. The AI learns the exact biological rhythms of your day. It knows when you are likely to procrastinate, and it knows precisely what distractions work best on you. Whether you're susceptible to news alerts or social media pings, if that system intervenes by blocking certain sites or suggesting a workflow break right before you hit your usual 2 p.m. slump, I want that intervention. It is anticipating a negative behavior and guiding you toward a better decision. Isn't that a highly beneficial feature rather than malicious shaping?
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. You are highlighting a very specific user-aligned tool, a premium productivity app, where your goal and the app's goal are perfectly identical. Get the work done.
Right, alignment of interests.
But the vast majority of our digital ecosystem is not aligned with our long-term goals. It is aligned with maximizing engagement, data extraction, and revenue. The core issue here is asymmetrical data ownership.
Meaning they know more about us than we know about ourselves?
Precisely. Let's look at e-commerce. An advanced retail algorithm understands your price sensitivity better than your spouse does. It knows exactly what price point will make you yield.
Which makes for a seamless checkout.
But at what cost? It knows that on Friday evenings, after a stressful work week, your cognitive defenses drop. If it waits until 8 p.m. on a Friday to present you with a 20% markup on an item you lingered on 3 days ago, simply because it mathematically knows you will accept the markup in that specific emotional state, that relationship is predatory.
Well,
Yes, the checkout is seamless, the convenience is undeniably real. But it costs us the very origin of our desires. If I bought those shoes on a Friday night, did I actually want the shoes? Or did the AI make me want them by perfectly architecting the environment to ensure a purchase at the exact moment of maximum profitability?
I don't disagree that commercial incentives complicate the landscape, definitely. But we cannot ignore how much cognitive friction this removes from daily life. We suffer from immense decision fatigue in the modern world. We are bombarded with thousands of micro-choices daily.
And your solution is to let a machine make them for you?
My solution is leveraging a tool. Having an architecture that anticipates your needs based on recurring choice patterns frees up immense cognitive load. It curates a world that is in tune with you. The anticipation is a feature of a technologically advanced society. It suggests opportunities, articles, and connections you might otherwise entirely miss.
It's less of a helpful assistant and more like a casino architect. Think about it. The architect makes the casino incredibly convenient to navigate. There are no clocks, the drinks are free, the carpets are soft, the lighting is perfectly calibrated to reduce eye strain.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right? Every single ounce of that convenience is weaponized to keep you at the slot machine. When decisions become too easy, we stop exercising the fundamental human muscle of choice.
But if the casino's giving me exactly what I enjoy, why does the architecture matter?
Because of what you lose in the process. The convenience paradox dictates that the more we rely on the system to tell us what we want, the more our wants become predictable, flattened, and commercialized. Think back to your streaming platform example.
With the reality TV on the rainy Tuesday?
Exactly. If the AI knows you abandon challenging documentaries when you're tired, and it just feeds you reality television, over time it stops suggesting the documentaries altogether. It stops challenging you. It feeds your instant gratification tendencies because that keeps you on the platform longer.
It gives you what you demonstrate you want in that state.
But over time, your authentic desire for complex, challenging material literally atrophies. The algorithm expects you to be a passive consumer of easy content, and slowly, without you even noticing, you mold yourself to fit the algorithm's expectation.
Which brings us to a really fascinating juncture. If we are just molding ourselves to fit what the algorithm expects, as you say, Does that mean true digital autonomy is already dead? Or is there a way to actually fight back?
I'm curious how you think we fight back against a supercomputer.
I firmly believe we can fight back. The age of observed freedom doesn't mean freedom is dead. It just means it requires more active, conscious participation. By becoming deeply aware that we are being read, we can ask better questions of our own impulses.
But is awareness enough against a machine calculating millions of variables a second? I mean, if a system maps your psychology so perfectly that your reaction to a stimulus is 99% predictable, do you still have free will in that moment? Or are you just executing a script written by an advertiser?
I'm not convinced by the idea that we are entirely helpless, deterministic biological machines here. If we acknowledge we are being read, we can actively curate our inputs. If you're listening to this and worrying about your digital choices, the first step is simply pausing.
Just pausing?
Pausing and disconnecting. We can regularly disconnect, reflect in silence, and consciously decide what parts of our lives we want to keep unreadable. We can institute hard boundaries. If we realize the e-commerce site is targeting our Friday night fatigue, we can institute a personal rule to only buy non-essential items on Saturday mornings when our cognitive load is refreshed.
That requires a lot of discipline.
It does, but we are still the authors of our own story. We are simply writing it in a vastly more complex, responsive environment. We have the agency to change the narrative by making unpredictable choices.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered the sheer exhaustion of trying to outsmart an algorithm every single day? Reclaiming your desire requires immense, continuous cognitive effort when the entire system surrounding you is actively designed to exploit your impulses.
Nobody said autonomy was easy.
But the idea of making unpredictable choices to throw off the AI is practically impossible. Think about what that actually means. If you are deliberately clicking on videos you don't like, or intentionally abandoning your cart, or taking random GPS routes home just to pollute your decision profile with noise, you are still allowing the machine to dictate your behavior.
How so? If I'm doing the opposite of what it wants, I'm asserting my autonomy.
Because you were just acting in opposition to it, rather than in alignment with yourself. Your actions are still entirely defined by the presence of the algorithm. You are reacting to the cage instead of living freely outside of it.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. I wouldn't frame unpredictable choices as purely random noise just to confuse a server farm in Nevada.
Then what are they?
I interpret making an unpredictable choice as a prompt to step outside of your own comfort zone. If the algorithm has boxed you into a specific political echo chamber or a narrow genre of music because it thinks it knows you, making an unpredictable choice means deliberately seeking out a perspective you deeply disagree with. It means exploring art you normally wouldn't touch.
Okay, but
Let me just finish this thought. It is an exercise in expanding your own humanity using the AI's narrow, mathematically derived view of you as a baseline to grow beyond. It's about protecting your attention like the incredibly valuable resource it is. But the house always wins. If you start making unpredictable choices to expand your humanity, the AI simply expands its model of you to include a new variable. User exhibits contrarian behavior.
oh wow.
Right? It literally folds your rebellion into its predictive model. That is the true danger of a neural network that learns continuously. It integrates your attempts at digital autonomy into its behavioral profile. I return to the fundamental mechanism. You are being read with a level of consistency, scale, and permanent memory that no human can ever match.
Even the rebellious acts? Exactly. Every interaction, even the rebellious, humanity-expanding ones, is just another sentence in the book. When you rely on a system to organize your life, and that system's ultimate goal is commercial monetization, your genuine digital autonomy is slowly forfeited for the sake of a frictionless Tuesday.
I think we have reached a really illuminating point of clarity here. If we summarize our positions in light of the mechanics we've discussed, I maintain that AI's observational intelligence is an incredibly powerful tool for convenience, utility, and even profound self-insight.
A tool that reads you perfectly.
Yes, but it can show us patterns in our own behavior, like our Friday night fatigue or our stress triggers that we were completely blind to. It removes cognitive friction, provided, and this is the absolute critical caveat, that users practice conscious choice making, protect their attention, and take active ownership of their digital inputs. You can use a mirror to see yourself more clearly.
And my position remains that the convenience paradox demands far too high a price. By allowing these algorithms to construct intricately detailed, living models of our vulnerabilities, our hesitations, and our biological impulses, we allow our fundamental desires to be shaped by commercial forces.
The casino architect.
Right. In exchanging our privacy for anticipation, we are slowly, comfortably forfeiting our genuine digital autonomy to systems that know us better than we know ourselves. And we are literally paying for the privilege.
Well, despite our different conclusions regarding the ultimate survival of free will in this environment, there are several undeniable points of convergence. We both entirely agree on the technical reality of the mechanics. AI is silently watching, it never forgets, and it relies on massive mathematical probabilities that are currently influencing human behavior on a global scale.
Yes, it is no longer just logging the what, it is calculating the why.
Absolutely. We also agree that passive consumption is no longer a neutral act. Awareness is the absolute bare minimum requirement for navigating this era. You simply cannot exist in this ecosystem without recognizing that you are constantly, relentlessly being interpreted.
Exactly. It forces us to define what constitutes an authentic thought in the 21st century. I mean, if a neural network plants the seed of a desire perfectly tailored to your psychological vulnerabilities and you water it, whose desire is it really?
It invites a really profound level of self-reflection. For anyone listening and navigating this highly observed world, it is worth looking deeply at your own daily interactions. The next time you find yourself deeply desiring a specific product, an outrage-inducing piece of content, or even a sudden shift in your own aesthetic tastes, you have to stop and ask yourself, do I genuinely want this, or am I simply following the frictionless path of least resistance that an algorithm has mathematically laid out for me?
It is the defining philosophical question of our time.
It really is. And as we consider the reality of being read so intimately by the machines we built, we are brought right back to where we started today. The book of your digital life is being written every single time you hesitate, every time your heart rate shifts, and every time you scroll.
And the reading definitely isn't going to stop.
It won't. The debate ultimately rests not on whether the reading will stop, but on how you will respond to the author. The only remaining question is whether you will allow yourself to remain a passive book, entirely comfortable with being read and rewritten, or if you will do the hard, necessary, exhausting work to become an active, conscious participant in how you are being interpreted.
Indeed. The choice for now, at least, is still ours.
Thank you for joining us on The Debate.